What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Movement is Medicine show. And today we're going to explore a hot and trendy topic of peptide therapy, something that is blowing up right now. And you really can't look at the news without seeing something about a GLP-1, Ozempic, Wegovy, all these types of things. And so we're going to explore peptides today. We're going to talk about them, talk about their clinical usage, and things you should be thinking about if you've been considering peptide therapy. Dr. Annie, Chryssie, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey.
So peptides are super hot right now for good reason. They're really cool.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, Chryssie and I have been crazy about peptides over the last, what do you say, 3 months?
Yeah.
Like every day talking about it. So excited. Some such interesting stuff coming out with peptides.
Oh, yeah, crazy interesting.
So I think it's important just for people to understand what peptides are. I think going through some fundamentals of peptides, and I'm not an expert in peptides. I'm in the learning phase, but they're little tiny proteins, right? They're less than 50 amino acids long. And they're naturally occurring in the body. Not necessarily the peptides that people are injecting, right? They're more synthetic, but they are mimicking a body's natural process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I like to describe them as, they're basically like little messenger codes, right? That you inject or you take orally, whatever, you put in the body, and they're very specific. So different peptides have very specific areas of the body they're going to communicate with. Now, sometimes the specific thing they're communicating to the body, those receptor sites, are all over the place. And so when we think about GLP-1s like the Ozempic and the semaglutide and the Wegovy and the tirzepatide, we have these GLP-1 receptors all through our body, brain and our gut and all over the place. And that's why when you see some of the interesting research about how it has system-wide benefits, that's why is because in that particular case, you put this peptide in your body and it kind of goes to all these different places and tells it to do certain things that happen to be beneficial for you.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to explain it. That's how I would explain it as well. And I think it makes the most sense. Like, it's something that your body once had an abundance of when it was younger and then or more youthful. And then as we get older, the body just produces it a little less, and it's there to give you a little more support. Get those receptors talking again.
Yeah, totally. And in this case, it might be in a higher dosage than you find normally, right, to produce or affect some kind of specific thing. So it's like taking something that's happening in your body and amplifying it in a specific way to produce this desired outcome that you want.
Yeah, upregulating our receptor sites, essentially.
Exactly.
Increasing signaling. Totally.
And so there's all different kinds of peptides that work on all different kinds of systems. And today I think we're going to focus in on just a couple.
There's zillions of peptides. And if people are paying attention to it, it can be really confusing and very overwhelming. And I think we need to think about what a starting point for people would be. The first thing to start is to look at sort of the whole terrain of your health, of your environmental health, of your physical health. How's your nutrition, your food, how's your inflammation, disease factors. Give yourself an honest assessment, because a peptide can't go in and fix what's going on if you've got a bunch of other factors. Inflammaging is the word we've been using today, and that's really, if you have an insulin issue and you're overweight and you don't exercise and you eat poorly and you've got a toxic home, then you've got some issues that you have to start with prior to thinking about using peptide therapy.
Yeah, big time. This goes into that category of things where sometimes people might look at it and think, oh, this is the problem. Like, oh, is there a peptide for, insert the problem that you have?
Right.
Oftentimes the answer is that maybe there's a peptide that could help with that, but that oftentimes the real fix is a deeper, more fundamental level where we're looking at some lifestyle modification. We're looking at those big levers like food and movement and recovery, micro, macro nutrition, and those things are kind of in place as it also then relates to hormonal optimization, all these factors. And then we have peptides that can come in as part of the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be careful because peptides are super sexy right now, but it's still, you can't just grab a peptide to fix all the problems. So again, you've got to look at the maybe more boring, mundane, everyday steps have to be in place.
Totally. You see this all the time, and I see these articles show up in my Apple News feed all the time, in different publications where it's like, is it the end of the lifestyle approach, like, this whole idea that lifestyle doesn't matter anymore because ultimately there's going to be a pill or an injection or something that is going to do all the work for you. And I think that that is a mistaken approach. And I do not actually believe we're going to there. I do think there are some pretty cool innovations coming down the path. And I think we have some really amazing medications as they exist right now, or some amazing therapies with peptides and with some other stuff. But all of it really has to build on this foundational base. Because if you don't have that, what you'll find, is that the results are either very temporary, or it's something that has some unintended consequences. Like maybe you use an Ozempic or something like a GLP-1 to lose weight, but it turns out that the weight you lost was lots of muscle as well as body fat.
Yeah, I mean, I think that GLP-1s are a great place to start with this conversation. And Chryssie and I are seeing a lot of positive and negative, but it's people are crazy for it because, you're going to drop weight, but you're going to drop fat, muscle, a lot of density that you don't want to drop. And so people are unfortunately approaching it in partially, I think, at fault of their provider or practitioner who is not advising a proper nutritional consultation and resistance training alongside of GLP-1 use. So people, they're losing weight, but they're losing it all.
Totally.
And then it rebounds negatively back where people are then gaining more weight and they have less regulation. So I think it's the topic that we have to be really careful with GLP-1s especially. And I think they're fabulous. Don't get me wrong. I think they're an amazing option for people who have a metabolic issue with weight loss. But I just think we have to really approach it carefully.
Yeah, I think there's a little more, these have been around forever, but they're just getting a lot of attention right now. And we put a lot of trust in our providers, and we think that they have our best interests at heart, which they absolutely do. But you know your body best. So if you feel like you're not responding positively to these things, tell your provider, maybe your dosage is too high. If you're not seeing results, maybe your dosage is too low. Like, you've got to educate yourself a little more on it and not expect your provider to know exactly what you're going to need, because no two bodies are the same. Everyone's going to require something a little differently, especially in regards to the different lifestyles that we live.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, this makes me think about menopause as well, right? I mean, how much have we talked about this topic? But again, it's something that is quite subjective, and you have to be self-aware and self-monitor and self-advocate. And I think the same thing when you're going onto a GLP-1, you need to be educated about it.
I agree. Education is key. I do think that it is something you should for sure consider and weigh your options. If you are thinking it might be something that you want to explore, in my opinion, you should definitely look at tirzepatide over a semaglutide, as it is the newer version. Semaglutide is like Betamax, and tirzepatide is like a DVD. And the next generation is in the mix already. In fact, there's multiple next generations in the mix, but semaglutide is where a lot of people will start. It's because what they'll get prescribed, or it's what their insurance will offer them.
Yeah.
And it's really the, in many ways, the one that has more side effects than, say, like a tirzepatide. So I do think, again, do your research. Again, if you're going through insurance, I know that can be a thing, but they can be very effective. However, to the great point you guys just made, I think they really need to be combined with some other intentional actions, like resistance training, like really looking at your food. Because one of the cool things that they'll do for you is they will make it easier to actually choose the behaviors and the foods that you should be choosing. They make it easier to do that. And that's lost a lot of times in the dialogue where, like, well, do people really need these things to lose weight, blah, blah, blah. And so they do. It's like they're not magical. Like, you don't just take them and the weight just doesn't just like shoot off your body,
Right.
I've seen people, I was back east, my buddy's on semaglutide, and I'm watching him eat this giant plate of poutine. I was just like, in a hamburger.
Yeah.
And so he ate half of the hamburger and he ate 2/3 of the poutine, where he would have ate all of it before and maybe got more. So yeah, okay, he ate less than he did normally. But I just was thinking the whole time, like, dude, why are you eating poutine? It's like you're thinking it's going to be this magical thing.
Right. It's going to change everything. It's going to cure it all. But there is some effort that needs to be done on your part as
Like
well.
everything.
Yes.
I think it's interesting. Chryssie has been working with an herb, with calocurb,
Yeah.
and it is a, maybe you can talk more on calocurb.
Yeah. So it was founded in New Zealand. New Zealand's invested $30 million into this product over the last 14 years. And New Zealand's stance is they're using the calocurb in place of a semaglutide because calocurb increases your production of GLP-1. So you can take 1 to 2 pills or capsules an hour before eating, and it just helps you feel fuller sooner, helps you feel more satisfied. So I've introduced it with a couple of my clients who have done a semaglutide. They saw a lot of success, but now they're getting to the point where they're like, I no longer want to pay $1,200 a month for this. So we're using it to kind of wean them off, but still give them that GLP-1 dose that they're looking for. And we've seen some really good results. I also have a client who is taking it for disrupting poor behaviors around food. And she said it's been great. Every night she normally craves something sweet, ice cream, chocolate, brownies. And she said that's gone. So that's pretty remarkable.
Yet the stats aren't great. They have like a lot of clinical data on that. And I think some of the numbers that I've read is that they say it reduces hunger by about 30%, cravings about 40%, and overall calorie reduction by like 18-20%. So if we're thinking about helping to put you into a moderate caloric deficit, make it a little bit easier to say no to, or really reduce that food noise or those food urges or impulses, this could be a great place to start. It's essentially having a very similar effect to what one of the injectable GLP-1s, but a little bit lower intensity, a little bit easier to moderate it and modulate it. And it's something that more you'd be looking at on a daily basis to be using.
I think the recommended dose is up to 4 pills a day. So depending on your tolerance, how you respond, you can take 2 pills an hour before 2 meals a day, or 1 pill an hour before 2 meals a day.
So this is great for a lot of people. So one, if you're like, I love the idea that I'm hearing about this appetite suppression or turning the food noise down, but I don't want to do an injection or commit to this, or it seems like I'm not quite there yet, this might be a great alternative. Or if you've tried the semaglutide or had a bad reaction or the nausea, you just couldn't stay on it, this would be another great addition to your tool set.
Absolutely.
Or if you're cycling off of a GLP-1 because you really, as your dosing gets higher as you kind of acclimate to it and you're still trying to get that same result, people's dosing can get really, really high. And when it gets really, really high, that's where all these weird side effects can happen. So highly recommend you take a break for 2 to 4 weeks, reset your receptor sites. And this can be a great way to help those types of things as well.
Yeah.
The other place I'd throw out is like a vacation.
Ooh.
Yeah. So like I've been big on thinking about using like a GLP-1 or something like a calocurb on vacation.
Yes.
Because like you don't want to not have fun on vacation, but at the same time, you don't want to like go on vacation and gain like 15 pounds or 10 pounds. And that's happened, 8 pounds. I mean, I remember when I went, it was like going to, Austria, like that whole kind of area. And it was just like beer and schnitzel, like fatty sausages and beer for like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert. I came back.
I have a German husband, so I should just take calocurb all the time.
Oh, gosh.
Because he's just like, I'm like, where's the vegetable? He's like, well, we have a potato.
We have this fatty meat.
And then he's like, well, Germans survived the war on potatoes. This is what we have, is the potato and the meat. I mean, last night he made like some kind of a short rib thing. And I mean, it was so fatty. I'm like, I think I can feel my arteries closing down. Like, I mean, seriously. So my life should have calocurb in it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think we should touch base. Maybe also the audience should probably know about the different ways you can dose peptides, right? I mean, so we have the injectables, and I think there's a couple different ways that can be done. Maybe probably Barry knows more, and then we have some oral peptides. Not all peptides can be done orally, but I don't love injecting myself, so oral peptides are the way that I'm leaning more towards, especially for the clinic and future programming there.
Yeah, so peptides can be administered a few different ways. And again, it kind of depends on the peptide, what the recommended delivery mechanism is. So there's sub-Q, which is a shallow injection, typically done with an insulin needle. And that's going to be done either in the belly or in the deltoid shoulder area, or can be done in the glute or side glute. It can be done almost anywhere you have skin, but generally speaking, what I found is the belly area, it tends to be the best. There's some areas in the belly that are you can't really feel the insulin needle going in. So I always recommend belly area. It can also be done intramuscularly, IM. So that is going to be with a longer needle, in whether it's a shallow IM or a deeper IM, into the muscle tissue itself. That one you can definitely feel more. I do think there's some people out there who prefer that just because maybe they get a slight increase in efficacy, but that one's going to be kind of hardcore. Don't recommend it. You definitely feel it. If you've ever gone to, say, a naturopath and gotten like a B12 shot where you're like, ooh, wow, felt that one go in. That's an IM, right? It's going into the muscle. And then you can also do sublingual, right? So sublingual is another, or you can do nasal, so that there are nasal sprays for many peptides that you can then basically snort, spray it in your nose and snort it up. And then, of course, you have oral, which is the easiest and most comfortable for some people. And it just depends on the peptide and its availability and how its delivery mechanism works best to see if it's formulated or not. There's just some that don't really do that well orally because of the stomach acid and all that stuff, or they get bogged down in the liver. But there are a lot that you can get orally. Like, for instance, one that I think has a lot of application is BP157. So BP157 is another peptide that people oftentimes will come across on their new peptide journey. They hear about these peptide stuff because it's a healing peptide. It's a regenerative peptide with a bunch of other side benefits too.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that the BPC, it literally stands for body protection compound. So that's what this peptide is intended for.
And that's the one I started on myself. And it's hard to tell, really, but I do feel like I'm less sore from my workouts and recovering well. I mean, it is notable difference from before I started and how I feel afterwards. I feel like a hard workout. We worked out quite hard. I do feel less stiffness and soreness, and my body feels great. The other peptide I'm also experimenting with a bioregulator, which is, they're really tiny. They're 2 to 5 amino acids long. And for sleep, that's kind of a different topic, but it's also working extremely well. And it's a pineal bioregulator. And then also an adrenal paired with that. And that's been quite curative for sleep, which for me is my number one health concern.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a big deal that it's making such a change for me. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, so I think with the BPC 157, it's great because most everybody has aches and pains or old issues or recurring issues. And oftentimes when we're going after a health goal, a lot of times, that means working out, that means getting sore. And then that can oftentimes trigger people's, chronic issues or old injuries. And so what I found is that having a BPC 157 in your mix, whether that's for active recovery or that you're cycling in just for maintenance, can make a huge difference in terms of muscle soreness, just bouncing back faster.
Yep.
I take the BPC 157, no hangover the next day. It was really good, actually. Yeah, because blood-brain
That's an
barrier.
insider secret.
Yeah, it's the blood-brain barrier. I take the BBC 157, and I wake up the next day. It's like, did I even have anything to drink last night?
That's
I feel
amazing.
Yeah.
I've had an intolerance to wine, which is breaking my heart. I don't drink very much, but I haven't been able to tolerate a glass of wine. But I have been lately.
And you've been taking the compound.
Yeah.
I just noticed it. I haven't seen anybody
Yeah.
talk about it, but I was like,
You're like,
weird. I'm on
weird.
this BP 157.
I wonder if it's the gut impact because
yeah.
it has a huge, and that was one of my things that I was interested in too, is it's how positive is for gut injured by, heavy Advil, NSAID, AID use, people with Crohn's, IBS, inflammatory bowel disease, other sort of gut issues. And women, especially over the age of 50 in the menopausal era, have a huge issue with our guts, right? They just downregulate. And so that's part of the really positive things coming out of the use of that compound is also the impact on the gut.
Huge. Yeah, and it's one that's really well tolerated. Again, depending on where you're coming from, there's not a ton of clinical stuff on this. I think it's like, wow, this all sounds great. What's the downside? Well, this is going to fall into that category of stuff, even like a lot of supplements where there's just not a ton of human research studies. It's not FDA approved if that's something that matters to you. There's a little bit of that like, okay, try it and see. From a safety standpoint, it's not like it's a safety issue for the most part, but it could be an efficacy or just how well it works for you as an individual. But, that's the kind of downside on peptides is that for many of them, there's not a ton of clinical data.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of research that's come out of Russia the bulk of it, right? But for peptides, I believe, and then there's a lot of animal studies. So there's a lot of human optimization biohackers into this field. So I think everyone does have to consider themselves a bit of a biohacker if they're going to go into the world of peptides. I do think there's probably more providers available who can properly help coach you through the use of peptides. Barry, you have a couple that you recommend. Perhaps we can put those people in the show notes. At Head to Toe, of course, we're working on conservatively bundling a few peptides along with our recovery protocol. And I think Chrissy's looking at working with her clients as well.
Yeah. And I think coincidentally, they're going to be the same that you're offering to your patients because it works so well. A lot of the clients that I see, they're dealing with similar aches, pains, inflammation that your clients see as well. It's a great little partnership.
If you're kind of interested to get into it and you want some guidance, keep your eyes and ears open for more communication coming in the upcoming weeks around some of the programs and protocols that we'll offer at Head to Toe that can help you. And then within the Build program with Chryssie, we can get into that. There's going to be opportunity there for you to learn more and pick those up.
Yeah.
Depending on when this drops, you can check out a whole new venture that I'll be releasing, which is Optimize and Thrive podcast, which we'll be dropping, as well as bodymindbiz.com, which will be a whole resource center developed really in conjunction in partnership with Dr. Angela, one of our favorite naturopaths. And so that will go deep into a lot of these topics as it relates to optimization and functional health and all kinds of cool stuff there. So if that's something you want to come join us, we'd be happy to have you over there as well.
Awesome.
Totally. So again, exciting new frontier, lots of cool stuff. We want you to be thinking about a couple neat peptides like BPC 157 or something like Calicurb. If you want to get into it, those, again, Calicurb's not even a peptide. It just stimulates your body's own peptide production, which is really, really cool. And if you have questions on this, feel free to reach out to us. And if it's something that you're interested in, we'd be happy to help get you on track.
Definitely.
Thanks for being here, and we will catch you on the next episode of the Movement is Medicine show.